evening, everybody. It's 6:31, it looks like. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. It's July 5th, Wednesday night, because of the holiday yesterday. We're meeting tonight. And we should
Microphone
have mine's off. Good, thanks. I must have hit it twice. Phones off and microphones on, and we're ready to go if you'll join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I can see. All right. Randy, roll call, please.
Trustee LaRue,
Here.
Trustee Wiegand,
Here.
Trustee Everson,
Here.
Trustee Marks,
Present.
Treasurer Johnson,
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, our legal counsel Roger Zappa. Committee member here is Mike Springer from Planning, Recreation, and Roads.
Thank you. First on the agenda, or next, is the consent agenda, which tonight consists of approval of the work session draft minutes of June 15th and June 28th, and regular meeting draft minutes of June 20th. Received committee and other reports, including the Planning Commission minutes of May 10th, Fire Department business meeting and officers meeting draft minutes of June 12th, Recreation Committee minutes of May 16th, and draft minutes of June 20th. Road Committee agenda for July 5th, approved minutes of May 2nd, and draft minutes of June 6th. My supervisor's report. Correspondence not requiring board action. Qualifying statement from the state of Michigan. Charter Communications correspondence regarding channel lineup. Correspondence from MTA, Michigan Township Power Plan. And the manager's response to public comment of previous meetings. Bills payable in the amount of $101,149.99. And financials from May, treasurers and financial statements. Anything that needs to be pulled out of this consent agenda?
Move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Excuse me. Then approval of the rest of the agenda.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Public comment. Anybody wishing to address the board? Anything, Mike? Okay, thanks. Okay, we were supposed to have privilege comment. I wonder if Sarah remembered that it might have been 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I was
We
thinking
might hold that. I
yeah.
did tell her, but
maybe she thinks we meet at 7 again, but that's
Yeah.
fine. We can always slide her
yes, we
in.
might hold that. Any board member comment? Anybody want to share or talk, or Randy?
Okay, we did have our election commission meeting this evening and got the election workers approved for the election in August. August 5th, which is the Community Day, I will be here in the Township Hall from noon to 2 p.m. to give out or receive any absentee ballots for the election on August 8th. So that's available to the residents if they can't get in. On Monday, you can still get absentee ballots, but they cannot leave the building. If you can come in and get it, you have to fill it out. But regardless, at 4 p.m. on Monday, absentee ballots are done. And for anyone with an absentee ballot, make sure you get it back to us by 8 o'clock on Tuesday, or it does not count. It will just go in the garbage. So make sure, if you have them, get them back to us, because we do check all areas at 8 o'clock to make sure we, received one. Check our mailboxes and everything. So, and that's it for now.
Thanks, Randy. Anybody else want to share, or? Yes, Pete.
Just a comment, I think next year in our water bill, when we send a little notice out for the month, we should put the rules of the fireworks, because sometimes it's like every other year, they get carried away until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. So I just think if we need address and that, we can send special letters to certain people, that because every year they do the same darn thing. So I just don't think it's right for the other people. And this year, I never heard about it before, but about the vets, it bothers the vets. I know it bothers animals and that, but, you know, it just, they light them up in the road and throw their stuff in their driveways and stuff like that. I think we could do a better job of that, so.
Yeah, it's funny, Randy and I were talking about that before the meeting too. I had a complaint, and I know it bothers our dogs too. And there is legislation pending apparently to give the communities a little more control by ordinance too, years ago. And I was just saying that started back when we were in the old hall. I remember talking about that legislation going through, so.
I know it bothers this old dog, I'll tell you that.
Yep.
I think just not having respect for the neighbors and that, you know, just.
And the other piece of it is there's a heightened awareness for any noise that sounds like gunfire these days.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
So,
Well, and if we know who these people are, maybe we need to take some action, whether it's the neighbor reporting it or.
Names and have the sheriff's department follow up. There are rules, there's laws, and times they're supposed to be doing it. It's been on TV6, it's been well published there. They had it on again tonight, you know, saying that this is the final day. So,
It's the day before, the day of, and the day after. I think it's still 1 o'clock?
till 1 o'clock,
1
correct?
o'clock.
But they're going off at 2, I know.
Yeah, just because I missed the fireworks, I don't mean I want to see it later on when I get home, so.
Okay, thanks for that. Anything else anybody has? Yeah, Ernie.
Just a reminder, by now, most of you should probably have received your summer tax bills. It's not something I like to bring up, but it has to be brought up, and that you have until September 15th to pay them and that, and we'll take your money anytime you want to bring it into the hall. There's no question about that. If you have any questions on it, bring it into the hall, and we'll go over it with you. There's no question about that either.
Good. Thanks, I guess. I did text you. I did get mine today.
Did ya?
Yeah, because I thought maybe they were late.
didn't get one, does that mean we're not gonna be getting one?
Anybody else? I want to thank Manager Gerard, as I did in my comments too, about the packet he put together. We've had a lot of questions and issues and things brought up during public comment recently, and Randy just took it upon himself to put all of that information together so the public can see it. It's in the packet, it's online, all the answers to all the questions and comments that were brought up. So I appreciate that, because that's what we're here for, is to educate everybody too.
But as one trustee, I'm a little bit tired of all that stuff,
Yeah.
you know.
But the public's allowed to speak. They have their 3 minutes, and it's our
But it's-
responsibility too to
I'm
answer them.
beyond that, though, so.
It does get kind of old over and over. Same stuff, especially. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we will move on to unfinished business, a road project update. I'm thinking that's going to be Dave.
Yes, it is. We just finished the road committee meeting just before this, and Mark was there at the meeting. He asked me if I could do the update because he had to go out and talk with a couple of residents about some issues they had. And in general, they're still in the process of removing driveways and cutting them back, getting ready for the crushing and shaping. That crushing and shaping and paving will start on July 12th through about mid-August. Some of the issues that we have tonight are the typical issues that occur over in Trowbridge with the drainage. And I tried to explain to the residents that were there tonight, and for the residents that might be listening to this again, is the intention of the road project and the bit curb application that was put into this project is to keep the water on the road until it can reach the point where it is supposed to leave the road, which would be the lowest spot. Sometimes that's in a creek that hasn't received a lot of attention lately. but there's no place else to put it. If you go beyond the creek, the road starts going back uphill, so it's not going anyplace besides into the low spot. And there's not sufficient funds, there never has been, and it was never calculated to be, sufficient funds into that road project millage to resolve the drainage issues. If we were going to resolve all those drainage issues, we would have had another 2 mills on there to take care of that. There just isn't the funds there to do it. And I hope the residents can appreciate the fact that we can't resolve all those problems. And there's a couple gentlemen there tonight that had some you can kind of feel for them because they're feeling the pain. But what happened is, and some of what we experienced tonight was, we've got a number of residents over the years, the last 20 or so, that have successfully filled in their road ditch. And then they come along and replace culverts as part of the road project, and now the water doesn't have a whole lot of places to go. And there's not money there, and there was never planned to go along and reditch the roads. That's a county project, and it was never intended to be part of this road project. So I hope the residents can understand and appreciate that those issues are going to remain issues, and there's not money within this project to fix them. But continue to call. I mean, if you got problems, you want somebody to talk to. We've successfully talked to everybody that has called us, and we'll keep doing that. So just call in, and we'll come out and see what your issue is. Maybe we can fix it. Maybe we can't.
Well, like Randy has said before too, we don't want to make it worse than what they had before, but in some cases, that's kind of what's happening.
Well, in some cases, it does get worse because if you improve the drainage through a road ditch that was not there before, when it arrives at the low point in the road, the poor homeowner that's there is going to get the water. I mean, he may not remember that the water used to go there because it hasn't gone there in a long time, because the road ditch has been plugged up and culverts have been filled. But, I mean, it's obvious that's where the water goes because that is the lowest point in the bottom of this hill. It has to go there. So it's an awakening for some of them, and they would like us to do something with it, but you're talking about ditching across somebody's entire yard to get it back to a creek, and there's just no hope that there's money in this road millage project to do something like that. That's well beyond the scope of this project. The gentlemen that were there tonight, I mean, they didn't like what they were hearing, but they accepted it, and we're going to move on from there and see if we can resolve some of their issues without going over budget.
Good.
But some of the problems is we have to get the county to step up, because that's where some of the problems are, is with the county and what they've done in the past and what they're doing now, or they're not doing. And,
Well, this whole road project is because the county hasn't stepped up. That's why the residents are paying 1.5 mils. And I suppose I shouldn't be making these kind of comments, but the drainage issue is, again, because the county isn't going to step up. I can appreciate the fact that they don't have any money to do what needs to be done, but that issue aside, it's the county's roads, and it's the county's job to maintain the roads. And a whole separate issue is maybe we should take our windfall and fix some roads besides buying equipment. And I'm sure I've said too much.
Well, Randy and I did try, or he did try to get a hold of Iwanaki, but I guess he was on vacation, so we'll make another attempt, either to have him come and talk to the board, or we'll corral him for an hour. Randy?
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is since we're fronting the money for the road improvements, I would expect the county would help a little bit with the drainage, because we are kind of bailing them out big time on the roads. And I mean, just in-kind stuff, like they could dig ditches, which isn't going to cost them that much money, just labor to do it. I mean,
Well, I will give them their due. They stepped up on a gentleman's house on Brookton Road and reditched that after some serious problems were caused from the improvements on South Vandenboom. They did come out and put a new ditch in. But that's the only thing I've seen him do in 3 years so far, so.
Well, I would hope that, I don't know if it's gonna be, this board's gonna have to send a letter to Jim or something, but, I mean, we're spending a lot of money here, and I understand the county's got issues with money. We all do. But I think they can help out a little bit more than they have been,
We have to be part of their budget somewhere. Whatever they're appropriating for us has to include something. So if it's not going toward roads, it should go somewhere else, whether it's the corridor or, I agree. And I told him that, and I made him very angry that night. And I also told him that maybe some of that should go not to equipment. And he got very red-faced and very angry. So it didn't stop me from saying it, but he didn't want to hear it. So I think we'll have the conversation.
But they're creating some of the problem by digging out ditches where they weren't so deep before. You have more volume of water going down in people's yards.
And we've had more water this year, too. Dan?
I was just wondering if Dave has contacted the drain commissioner and had him involved with any of this, and where maybe have you gotten with him?
Committee members have talked to the drain commissioner. The road committee can't go outside and talk to other agencies.
They're an advisory committee.
But there has been discussions because he's more of a neighbor than anything else with the drain commissioner. It's the same thing. I mean, they don't have any money. They can appreciate the problem, they can sympathize with the problem, but when it's all said and done, they're not gonna do anything about the problem because there's funding issues.
But that's getting to be an old argument, because then where is their money going? Again, they have to have some kind of budget for each community. And whatever that is, it needs to be apportioned. It's a ridiculous argument.
I hate
We're
to
gonna
step
call them on it.
on old wounds, but their township signed a contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, with the county, that says they can collect our tax dollars for the roads and distribute it as they see fit. And if it's not in this township, then it can be someplace else. It's wherever they think the need is. Does that pretty much cover it?
Well, it's pretty much the act, yeah.
Randy had his hand up. I'm sure he's got.
So until we resolve those kinds of issues,
Well, there are a couple of things that the residents need to recognize, and I know board members remember. When we first embarked on this project, it was fully acknowledged, and still is acknowledged, that we have no responsibility for roads or drainage, period. The township has no statutory or any kind of policy or any kind of ordinance or any kind of legal responsibility for that. The roads and their right-of-ways and the drainage that comes off of them are a specific road commission issue. They own the roads and they own the right-of-way. What we were responding to were many survey responses from residents that said they wanted their, quote, roads fixed. And that's what this millage was all about, and this is what this project was all about, road surface. Not drainage, not anything else. Secondly, the road commission, you will hear, don't have the money, the proceeds, or whatever to deal with it. That is a legislative issue. That's not necessarily a local road commission issue. So the residents, if they have concerns about the drainage or the roads or whatever that have not been addressed, their proper course is through the legislature, through their representatives. We have an election coming up. Where are the candidates for the 109th House standing on road commission issues? And lastly, the residents themselves in some cases are responsible for this. As Dave mentioned, many residents have taken the belief that they own the property right to the road surface, and they do not. They do not own the property that is within the right-of-way. So when they're filling in the ditches, when they're building their driveways for their residences without getting the proper permits from the road commission for culverts, they are creating the drainage issues. The drain commissioner only has authority for those properties that are within established drainage districts, and that is not the entire Trowbridge. So he is somewhat limited in what he can do. The detention basins that are placed around the township are specifically designed to handle those water overflows, but as developers and homeowners have changed the topography, filled in areas, changed the drainage patterns, they're not working any longer. as you drive around, it's not a surprise that there are water issues. Many of the properties, particularly in Trowbridge, but not only in Trowbridge, but particularly in Trowbridge, are below the road grade. It's, I mean, it's basic physics. The water is going to go to the lowest point, as Dave mentioned, whether it's a low point of a road or a low point of an area. And if a home happens to be there, they are going to get water, and there's nothing we can do about that, short of installing a full drainage system. I mean, that's just the fact of life in our township. It is. Coupled on top of that, we have had an extremely wet season. We're something between 3 and 4 inches above the long-term average rainfall already this year. So all those things coupled together are causing this issue. But primarily, the issue is that residents have changed the topography of their property and have disrupted the drainage. The road commission has their blame, but the residents also have some blame. We cannot fix those problems without a huge millage. Probably 3 or 4 mills over many years.
Ernie?
Talking about road grade and road height and everything else like that. When I moved there in '67, I was level with the road. That's where it was. But in two construction sites with the county, it's gone up now. If I didn't have that bit curb on there, I would have a tremendous amount of water coming in. But when I came there in '69, there was no problem with it. The water went down there and that, but now with raised the level of it.
Yeah.
Without the bit curb, I would have.
Your road's higher in front of your house?
Yes, higher now too.
From
They raised
repairs.
Just enough, so if I
Yep.
didn't have that, I would have water in my basement and that too. So.
Yeah, continuous repairs, and that's what happens with that is whenever they disrupt the road grade, they have to reestablish the grade, so they put more on top, and and that's where the bit curb in our project is designed to do that. It's to move the water, keep it on the paved surface of the roadway till it gets to where it's supposed to get off. And in some cases, that is on private property. It has to be. That's where the water goes.
I might just add that as long as we're talking about the height of the roads, the nature of crush and shaping the roads is going to raise the roads 2 inches above what
Inches.
they were before. And if you consider the bit curb that we're adding, that raises it 3 more inches. So if the bit curb is not lowered at your driveway, which in many cases this year especially, we're not lowering the bit curb at the driveways because we don't want the water in the driveway. That makes it 5 inches higher than the road was before they started. That explains for a lot of the residents why they're cutting their driveways back as much as 8 feet, because they need to gradually taper that back into the road surface so you're not driving over a speed bump at the end of your driveway.
Or
But
plowing over it.
this is the lesser of two evils, because if you didn't put the bit curb in there with the extra 3 inches, that water would be coming off the road and right into their driveways.
Thanks for that reminder, because I remember that now during our discussions, they did say that. Anything else? Any other questions? We're good? Okay, thanks, Dave. Discussion on Township 492 corner lot property. I put this on the agenda. I got a hold of Steve Pelto to get an update, and he said he would update us after the 4th. I had asked him, or suggested maybe he be here tonight. Maybe he forgot too. I'm not sure. It's kind of funny with our schedule being off. But we do have, we signed a year lease with them, or contract, or however we want to, purchase agreement set up, whatever. And we still have people asking about the trash put back there. According to Steve, the price is too high, $500,000. He thinks that, or he said his last appraisal was a little over 3. And I thought, again, like he would be here to talk to us a little bit about it. And I just wanted to get the feel of the board. Where are we going with this? Are we okay with just, I don't know what it would take to break the contract, if that's what we want to do, or to have him do something different, or lower the price, or...
Did we have a person interested before we signed the contract? Is that person still available?
Not at that price. That's what he says.
At 5?
Yes. The two people, no. not that I know of. And again, that's why I was hoping he'd be here tonight. But, I don't know.
Maybe this is an item for the 18th, and we can get a chance to get Steve. over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I kinda kept, unless it's 7 o'clock, he's thinking that we're meeting at 7 again too, he could still arrive. But I want you to think about this, cause it's something we need to decide. I mean, there are things we can do as far as putting the trash back, putting up a fence, expanding Schwimmwood Park. We had talked about that years ago, and Randy and I have talked about this a couple times now. If we decide we want to keep the lot, do we want to put it back on the tax rolls? Do we want to take a price cut to unload it? I need you to kind of be thinking about this so that Steve knows what to do too. But Ernie, you had your hand up?
I think the bigger thing, when I saw this on the agenda, I started thinking about that. It really isn't costing us anything to have that piece of
Right.
property there. True, by selling it, we're gonna generate some taxes in that someday. But, it's not costing us anything. It's nothing like the old township hall where we had the utilities and everything else that we had to pay, so. I don't know what the future's gonna bring. Way things are happening on the highway, there's gonna have to start moving off the highway and that, and it's a good piece of property. It's just a matter of, someone, is gonna look at it and want it. It may, I personally am not in a big hurry to sell it, drop the price and just try to unload it for those dollars net, because it's not costing us anything. That's my key. That's all I have to say.
That's fine, and that may be the consensus of everybody, but it's been a few months now, I wanted to get an update. Dave?
Some of the questions I would ask, and I would hope you would be able to provide some answers for, is more than in just general terms, how many people have seriously looked at it? How many people have discussed prices and what they, has anybody gotten serious?
I bet, as far as he said, 2, and the prices stopped both of them. But again, I don't know if
Again,
there's
that,
any
when
kind of an
I
offer
heard
made.
that much of a comment, it suggests that they didn't even make an offer, which makes me question the seriousness of their concern. I personally don't have any problem holding on to the property for a while, because I think when the corridor is done, it is gonna be a little more valuable piece of property. And worst case scenario, I know the past boards have committed to selling that property so that we can pay off the township hall quicker, and I think that's something should weigh in on when we're deciding whether we're gonna keep it or sell it. But there's a point where getting it back on the tax rolls at a reduced price is not necessarily gonna benefit us over the next 15 or 20 years before we get close to what we lost on it. So we might wanna weigh in and consider that when we're deciding whether we wanna keep it listed or not. But I'd just like to get a whole lot more information from Steve.
Randy?
I agree with Treasurer Johnson and Trustee Wiegand about keeping that property, because like he says, it's not costing us anything at all. As far as a drop-off site for stuff, it was very unsafe with that corner there for people coming around the corner, and you got a line up there. I think, it's not as convenient as it once was, but I think the site we have now is set up better for the residents to bring their stuff in and get it dropped off in a safe manner, rather than lined up on the edge of the road and someone could hit you coming around the curve. That's what people haven't brought up about this drop off, is there was times there was 10, 12 cars lined up there on 492, and you get someone coming too fast, they could hit a bunch of cars there. It was unsafe, and especially in the winter when it is icy. So I think keep it for now. Maybe put this back. I would recommend put this back on the agenda for the 18th. Maybe see if we get Steve Pelto over here to, give us more information on it.
Unless he happens to come in later. Dan?
I'm just wondering if he does come in, if we can find out how aggressively he is trying to market it. Where has he spent some marketing dollars in the past 6 months? Anybody can come along and say, well, I've got 2 people interested. Who are these 2 people? I know he's not going to divulge who they are, but anybody can just say that too. So time to step up to the plate a little bit.
And I'll make a motion. We put this back on the agenda, July 18th.
Okay.
And can I ask a question? How aggressive are we trying to sell it? Take a look at that area there. We have to get in there and clean it up. If I would have more time today, I would have went in there, took one of my trailers and started hauling some stuff out there. I'd call Randy first, but,
Well, the problem is we still have people improperly dumping there.
well, that's what I mean. If we clean it all up and make it look nice and like it's not supposed to be a dumping ground, right now it looks like a dumping ground. And I think when you look at something like that, if there's a bunch of junk in there, your mind does funny things. It's just, you're looking at something that's not really up to par, but if you're looking at something that's nice and clean and, neat looking, then your mind can, you can imagine this and you can imagine that, but with the junk there, you're not gonna. So I think we have to clean it out, and I'd be willing to help with it too. So.
It's going to take more than cleaning it out. We have cleaned it out. We've put barricades up, and the barricades have been knocked down, and people have dumped. We've had signage up there saying it's private property, and people continue to dump. So, we've been cleaning it. It's cost us money. Finally, I stopped because there was no impeding it. The only way to do that is to fence it. If it's not going to be used for that and we clean it up, then we need to fence it. Otherwise, it will not be cleaned for very long.
Have to be a tall fence.
I think there's some people making a point,
Yeah.
specifically dumping there for a reason.
Well, and we talked,
Could try it one more time.
the previous board especially had talked about expanding Schwemmwood and putting restrooms and more parking and, some kind of a building maybe with soda machines or something for the people using it.
But that's a
so-
valuable piece of property.
It is.
Versus just putting bathrooms in that. I wouldn't do that, because I think it can be marketed by cleaning it up, start marketing it, and then,
Well, that's
without
what
giving it away.
That's what I'm looking for. So, I mean, not to decide tonight, but just so you have an idea of what, if we're okay with sitting on it, that's fine. I don't have an opinion right now. I don't have an opinion, so. Ernie? Okay. Go ahead, Randy.
No, it's your job. Call the question.
Oh, I was thinking we had a, no,
Not
you
my-
need a motion.
Yeah, but I don't have anything
Do you
else.
have a second?
Yeah, John seconded.
Okay, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. These discussions, it's hard to remember what's going on. I will put that down for my next agenda.
Keen agenda.
See if we can, unless Steve happens to show up tonight, but I kinda doubt it. I did text Sarah too, but I haven't gotten an answer. So, that's okay. We'll move on. New business, budget amendment 2017-05.
Present to the board Budget Amendment 2017-05, and what the budget amendment is we've authorization is requested to recognize the loan proceeds and corresponding capital expenditures to the fire department for the ambulance and equipment. So it's basically we got the loan for the ambulance, and that's reflected in their budget. So I make a motion to approve that.
Motion and support, we need a roll call.
Yeah. Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee Everson.
Yes?
Trustee LaRue.
Yes?
Trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Trustee Marks.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
And Supervisor Duran.
Yes,
That motion carries.
thank you. Yes, sir.
We're recognizing this, but this is gonna be paid off on the millage when it comes through, so there's
Yes.
all
Yeah.
taken care of in that.
Yeah, this is basically just the receipt of the cash into the account to be distributed as we receive the items that are being purchased. And as Treasurer Johnson mentioned, it'll be levied in December and collected early next year, paid off in one payment.
It's in now, and we have to wait until the money comes and it'll be paid off.
Correct.
We did have a request from John, and we will talk about that at the next, I'll hand that stuff out, his information. We'll talk about that at the next meeting. It's on the agenda already. We're okay on that then? No other questions? 10B is consider board direction on increased maintenance needs for Lions Recreation Area and Schwemmwood Park. We have had a request from the Recreation Committee and the chair, Mike Springer, who is here tonight, if we have questions or if you wanted to speak, Mike, about Schwemmwood and the whole recreation park system that we have, which is fairly limited, but the committee has concerns. I have some definite thoughts on this, but did you want to say something first, Mike? before the board talks or asks questions or comments?
If you've had the opportunity to read the rec committee minutes throughout the past 6 months, 10 months, the maintenance has been an issue. Our recreation maintenance has been an issue, and we need to improve the warming building facilities and get that cleaned up better. There's some damage at the ice rink we'd like to get fixed. The children's structure, there had a woman come in and talk about the pipe connecting the two megaphones where the kids can talk to one another. There's just a lot of issues, and because we have increased our recreational amenities and offerings, it does need more maintenance and more attention. So it is our hope that we could hire, or that the board would hire an additional staff that could be directed, at least the majority of that person's time, directed to take care of these recreational maintenance needs. Have any questions? I don't have anything else to say other than this has been an ongoing concern. We did, the rec committee at one time put together a list just for the rec area over at Lions Field, and we call it an expanded needs list, and that was forwarded to Randy Gerard probably last October. So it's just an ongoing issue that sooner or later needs to be addressed.
Anybody have any questions for Mike? Dave?
I don't really have any questions for Mike, but generally this is just, it's the intention of the rec committee to put it on the board's radar for when we're coming up to budget time. We need to consider this as being a need, and it gets meted out with money the same as everything else does. Randy Gerard put together a letter today to the board. It's in the packet about the staffing levels and personnel that are going away and personnel that are coming on, and how many bodies he's got versus how many bodies he needs. And this is just the recreation committee putting in their 2 cents worth to support the manager that yes, we do need some more bodies if it's someplace in the budget out there. This is asset management 101. We've got all these things up there, and we need to figure out if we want to take care of them or if we want them to fall into disrepair, because the further they fall into disrepair over the years, the more expensive they are to replace and fix, as opposed to just maintaining them as time goes on. So, as my understanding, the rec committee just wanted to get this on the board's radar for budget and for staffing considerations. Is that pretty well covered, Mike?
Sir, thank you.
Randy?
A couple comments too. We have a very small window till probably in the middle of August. My comment would be is if, and like I said before, recreation is an amenity and it is increasing. And are we to the point now where do we have to ask the residents for a small millage to maintain the facilities and, try to maintain what we have and maybe increase it a little bit? Our budget this year is tight. I had to scrape a lot of money for the elections and for our computer server, so there's no funds available this year. But I did read Randy's letter today, and he said basically it's around $40,000 to get a person with the benefits and such. And we just increased fire 0.19, reaches about 40,000. And if we went for like a 0.2 mil increase, that's about $40,000. However, that language has to be in and approved to the county by early August, so for the November election. So I don't know. It's up to this board to figure out if they would like to ask the residents if they would like to, support recreation. And our general fund budget, talking to the manager today, we just can't go any further than we are now unless we do a small millage. That's my comments.
Ernie?
A couple of comments, kind of following up on Randy's too. We have facilities out there, recreational facilities, that we have to address for maintaining them. That's one thing. So we have to figure out just exactly what we need to maintain them, what it's gonna cost to do it overall. Personnel-wise, costs, everything all the way down the line. It's not only personnel, but it's also equipment costs and everything else. Along with it. That's one thing. The other item is that, as Randy said, like, Vittori, about our budget. So the other comment I have, when we're looking at these grants, I think we have to look at what kind of costs we're gonna have to address in maintaining these at the same time. If we can't address them at the time we go after the grants, maybe we wanna back off on this for a while until we come up with something in that. It's a double-edged sword at this point in time. We wanna have them, but there is a cost once we get them in. How do we maintain them at the level that we wanna maintain them? So we have some that we have to maintain, otherwise, as Trustee indicated, that we don't want it to go in despair at all. So we have two things that we have to worry about, from my standpoint. So.
John, did you have a comment?
My comment would simply be that once you've gone through the process of applying for a grant, having approval to go after it, then you get it and you build the recreation facility, you put in picnic tables, you do all kinds of things to make the amenity fit the needs for the community. Very little thought was ever given to maintenance, and we've made that mistake a couple of times. And I think that Ernie's comment about when we're going after grants, to add to that, that one part of the equation that we've ignored in the past is that it's going to cost some money to maintain whatever you install. And I think we need to do that. It's been a mistake, frankly, on this board's part by not doing that. But I support maintaining what we've got. I don't care how we got there. That's behind us. We do need to maintain it. So we can look at it as a lesson learned.
Anything, Dave, while I'm on this end of the table? Okay. If you look at the minutes that we've had in our packets for the Recreation Committee, there's a lot of different things they've been talking about. They want to meet with staff and figure out how that can be arranged. They want landscaping. They want to talk to the alternative school to volunteer. They want to talk to NTN, and NTN's talked to them about single tracks and funding and Frisbee golf and maintenance and Northern Michigan University. I mean, I think I personally would like to see a work session, and whether that means waiting until the budget sessions and we take part of that time to figure out how we want to do this. But John's right, we haven't put this into place at all. And the way this is supposed to work is we're supposed to be asking our committees to do stuff for us, not the committees coming to us asking for stuff. So we're kind of dropping the ball twice here. We're not delegating, and we're not taking care of it on our own either. So
What do you mean, Lynn? Explain that.
committees are supposed to be set up to do what the board can't do or doesn't have time to do, okay? I've said this before, and I'd still like to see it happen, that especially the rec committee, maybe it means dissolving them and hiring staff. Maybe it means structuring it with a fleet of volunteers to do all this stuff. I mean, we need to have that discussion on how we're going to do this. There's 2 or 3 different ways we can structure it, but we're not doing anything. I think it's important enough that we should talk about it now, because we still have 2 or 3 months of summer that this equipment and the grounds and stuff are going to be not as well tended. And I'd like to see us come together on some kind of a direction and say, Recreation Committee, this goes back to policy governance. If we had this direction and this philosophy in place, it would happen. But we're kind of in the crux of, are we gonna do this, or are we not gonna do it, or how do we structure it, when do we start it? So what I'd like to see is have us have a work session sooner than later and figure out what kind of direction we want to give the Recreation Committee. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to have our committees working for us. Not that they have these meetings and they call all these people in and people are calling them saying this needs to be done, or why can't we do this, or I'd like to help, or, I mean, it's backwards. Dave? Dan? Sorry.
A specific list, Mike, of things that are in maybe desperate needs of getting completed, getting fixed. I want to put the cart before the horse, but I would like to know what we're gonna need to have done.
Yeah, I mean, and Randy has a checklist that we put together, rec
Yeah.
committee. That was just for Lions recreation area, because that's really the area that needs the most attention. It's more used than Schwemmwood, but Schwemmwood with the expanded amenities too are going to need a little more maintenance as well. We've got 3 different locations for trash recyclable bin that has to be, weekly taken care of in each location. So we do have a list, and we really get our direction from a rec plan. All the things that we try to move forward are on the action items that are in the rec plan. And we've actually accomplished quite a bit of those in the current rec plan. So, and we certainly, anytime the board says, hey, rec committee, will you look into this, we certainly take that and try to come back with some answers. One of the things that we do is, I guess we see, there are people, matter of fact, this idea of the Frisbee golf course was Dan Adamini's idea. He thinks it's popular, and he thinks it would be something that maybe the local people would like. But we don't necessarily work on it. We get people that want those things and come in with a plan and maintenance and all those kinds of things before we even bring it to the board. And the same thing with the single track. We've been working with NTN. Mike Burnett specifically has been pushing for a single track through there. We did some GPSing, but they haven't come back with a plan. I mean, it's all been kind of verbal. We'll take care of maintenance, we'll take care of this, but we really need something concrete, some kind of document that the board can review and decide whether or not this is something that you want over there. So we're trying, we don't mean to get ahead of the board. We're just trying to field a lot of stuff that instead of them coming to you. I mean, one of the things that happened that I noticed was that you had a year or so ago, you had some people come that wanted a Frisbee golf course at Vandenboom. As far as I know, because I come to a lot of the board meetings, as far as that never came to before the rec committee. We didn't have a chance to vet that and ask questions and do all the kinds of things that we like to do before we would introduce that to the board. But then the board went ahead and gave $2,000, I believe it was for that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
1,000.
But so in some ways we would like things to go before us so we can properly vet it for you, so we can have the questions that we know that you're going to ask about how is it going to be maintained, who's going to be responsible for damages, or what's the liability issues, all those kinds of things. And we try to at least field some of that stuff before it gets to you, but we can change that.
Wow, lots of hands. I don't know who was first.
What,
Well, and with respect to the rec committee, if you read the minutes, it looks like we've got our fingers into everything and we're doing all kinds of things. And in reality, we're not. We're listening to these guys come in and propose their ideas. And the discussion at the rec committee level, especially with the the Frisbee Golf and the single track trail is we're not doing any of the legwork on that. We're telling them what kind of information we need before we could even recommend something like that be considered by the board. The rec committee is not moving ahead on any of that stuff. We're just kind of the idea guys out there that somebody comes in and says, wouldn't it be nice if we have this? And we said, okay, yeah, it would be nice on the surface, but we need more information. And the emphasis has been put on maintenance lately because it's been pointed out that we have done a tremendous amount of work at Lions Field and Summer Schwemmwood that maintenance was not put into the package. And we appear to be at least one staff member short to make sure all that maintenance gets done. And the maintenance that's on Lions Field that needs to be done is mostly cleaning and picking up and stuff like that they just don't have the physical body to do that with. He doesn't have the man hours to put in to do it. And that's what that suggestion is from the rec committee, is that we might want to consider that when it comes to budget time is a staffing increase. I mean, there's other ways to go about that. If you don't want to do the staffing increase, you can look at a volunteer group to go in and do that maintenance. I mean, there's any number of ways you can get it done, but we're back to some direction from the board. I mean, what sounds like a good idea to be looked at and to be worked on. I mean, the rec committee can work on anything you want the rec committee to work on. But if you leave us to our own, we're going to come up with all kinds of wild ideas.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
And that's what you get.
Pete?
Dave said some of this stuff, but it's right. We have a ball field, we have a hockey rink, and it takes maintenance, just like your house. You have to maintain it, you have to do something with it. You have to have somebody do it. That's why I asked you the question, explain what you said, because you said rec committee's not doing anything. Well, the warming shack was put up by volunteers, and several other rec committee was there to help put it up. So we do a lot of things that people don't even know about. And but we have to maintain it or shut it down, one or the other. I mean, the other day, Dave and Mike said, come on, we're gonna meet over here. Well, be careful when you say, oh yeah, I'll stop by. So we're digging out some goddamn guy's trench, backed up. So I mean, they are doing a lot of things. So they put the fat man on, the other one has to lean over. So, but I mean, we do a lot of things. But I wouldn't take a phone call from it. We said, meet me over here.
Okay, just to qualify that was not a committee project. that was three guys that saw a need and wanted to help some poor old guy out.
Neighbor helping neighbor.
Because I was going to do it, and these guys decided to show up and help me, but that was not a committee project.
Yes, Randy?
I don't want to beat up on the road, or on the road committee or the recreation committee, because it's not just them. You have to recognize that as a community, the board has endeavored to provide things that the residents want, and some fairly major things. And and as Trustee Marks mentioned, not a lot of thought was given to what that means from the standpoint of staffing and how you deal with it. It's just a couple of examples. Yes, we have Lions Field, that was done and is in great shape, but we also have contracts. We have a contract with Marquette Public Schools, and we have a contract with Marquette Little League, which means that I have to have somebody on that field every day, June and July, restriping, regrading, redoing the mound for the games and the practices that they do. They have an exclusive use June and July every day until, from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 9 o'clock at night. So I've got to have somebody there. That's a person, June and July, out of my 2 3/4 people. We also have all of the safe routes to school and the pedestrian pathways that we put in that require maintenance, sweeping, cleaning, taking the snow off in the wintertime. That's not a 2-hour job, so those are just a couple of things. And then you've got rentals. We rent the community center. We have to have somebody on site for those rentals. That's typically weekends, so that eats up hours on the weekends. And between May and August, that's every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with graduations, weddings, wedding receptions, all kinds of things. So those are, in addition to projects, those are everyday occurrences and, common occurrences. We're open until 10 o'clock at night. I have to have somebody here to go close up Lions Field, to close up the warming building, 10 o'clock at night. That's when we close them. So, I mean, it's not just the recreation, it's general operations. We clean the 3 buildings, they clean the pump houses, they clean the pump stations, those kinds of things. And it's like everything else, it's like the utilities in the ground. You don't really pay much attention to them until something happens. We've been limping by, but there's just not enough hours with 2 3/4 people to cover all of the things that need to be done on a regular basis, and then in addition the recreation stuff on top. And it's not a secret. I've raised it time and time and time again with grant proposals and everything else. Remember, somebody's gonna have to take care of this. We've had a discussion in the last 3 budget cycles about adding additional staff to Public Works so they can catch up on the things they need to do. We've been expanding our Public Works systems, our water and sewer systems, almost half again as big as it was when we were over on the other side of the street, but we haven't increased any staff. The maintenance requirements and the oversight requirements are still there. So, I mean, those are things as a growing community that we're struggling with. We're still at the same staffing. I shouldn't say that. We added one 3/4 time position since we've moved over here, and look at what all we've done since we've been over here. Not just from the standpoint of our facilities and operations, but what we're offering to the public. Just in the last 3 to 4 years. Lynn and I were talking today. We've already been here 4 years. It's kind of hard to believe that it's been that long already. It seems like it was last week we were moving in here. But a lot of things have happened. A lot of things have been added. The item that Mike had mentioned, the disc golf, that was a little bit different situation because that was the school system. The public schools came to you and asked for a contribution to something they were doing on their property that was adjacent to ours. But everything else we've done. Our millage has rolled back, as it does every year. It's rolled back. Our 5 mills is now right around 4.9. So that's gone away. The revenue that we had from a lot of the businesses has been reduced. Obviously, we're hoping the Supreme Court will stop that, but they haven't acted as yet. So there have been a number of things that have happened that were beyond our control that have impacted our ability to continue to go forward. As you know, I've had one of my, right now I've only got 1 3/4 because one of our building grounds caretakers did a medical retirement. So we're in the process of filling that again, and I'll be having 2, and I sent you out an email today explaining it. We're going to have 2 new building and grounds caretakers coming on because our current building and grounds caretaker has posted to a service position in Public Works. So we've got a transition going on in there. So for the months of June and July, he'll be orienting the 2 new ones that are coming on to building and grounds, and then he'll move. So, but our staffing isn't increasing. It's basically staying static. So, I mean, that's what we're facing. And you will be seeing a proposal in your 2018 proposed budget to address some of that. But, again, it's going to depend on what our revenue stream looks like. And that's where Clerk Rotari was talking about. We kind of get tired of asking the residents for more, but the residents want more. And realistically, it comes with a cost.
I was coming back to you, John. Go ahead.
I think that there's no end to the lineup that we're going to have of residents who individually think they've got a great idea that they'd like us to pursue and like that. But if you were to ask them, would you be willing, as an individual, to take a petition out and circulate it, asking for signatures for a millage to fund your project? The likelihood is that they probably would leave. Most people want something, but they'd like it to be free of additional cost. We're all guilty of that. The other comment I want to make is that we've got a lot of volunteers, not as many as we'd like to have in the township, and I want to be careful about how we address our revising, perhaps, of structures of committees and things like that. Because I think they were dedicated people who were really deeply interested in doing good for the community and making it a better place than all of us have found it. So we need to be careful about that. But I think that the supervisor's request to have a meeting sometime, a get together to talk about it, so we could have a freewheeling conversation about it. I think that's in order. I wouldn't do it right away, though. I think we need time for other things to get settled and get closer to the budget time. But there is a need for us to move with what I perceive as a changing structure of our community and our township board. And I think that work session that's been asked for might be a great open meeting for just freewheeling conversation about what we're each perceiving the revisions are. That's all I have.
Yes, Dave?
Some of the information I'd like to see before we get to some kind of a work session like that is, and I think the managers has put together some stuff on it already in the email today, is I'd like to see the specific breakdown on what he feels the staffing level requirements are going to be to take care of what we have, what some of our perceived options as he sees them are, and what some of the costs are associated with those, so that when you go into that work session, you got a basis for deciding what we want to do and what direction we want to head. I think that information before that work session would be very useful in having a worthwhile discussion.
Okay, so this is Randy's responsibility to take care of these things, and with what Mike's brought forward and Dave, is there something that you want to do or suggest or recommend for Randy to take care of or not, or pay for or do before we get into the budget thing, if we don't have a discussion now?
I just wanted to see that, I've got a hall rental, Lions Field, cost effective. Are they cost effective, or we got to change the rates or whatever to make it cost effective so we're paying for it? Or is there another way of doing it, you know? I mentioned before about having someone for a while and then give them a key and have them lock up. Well, like Randy said, we've got a heck of an investment out there. You don't want something to go bad. So just rethinking, just see, is there any way we can do it? Are our rates, are they in line to take care of our costs and stuff like that? It'd be kind of interesting. So,
Well, Randy and I did talk about having some outsource for maintaining the bathrooms and stuff. Maybe once a month, somebody go in and deep clean everything. I don't know what that would cost, in addition to whatever the park workers can do. You know, if they can go in and open everything up, maybe sweep it out and clean the bathroom real quick or something and have it presentable. We want to, if we're going to have people there, it's got to look decent. But maybe getting in the lockers and, you know, behind everything and do a deeper cleaning once a month, we could maybe afford to do that. But I'm looking for some direction.
or what's it
What
cost?
do you want him to do about it? Do you want to wait until July, August, September when we start budgeting, or what?
What's the cost of outsourcing the cleaning the offices? A lot of other offices do. You know, have we ever thought about that? So that'd be one of the questions that we might want to ask.
We talked about that too. Dave, did you have something else?
I think, I have no doubt that the manager has some ideas on how this can be resolved, and he's got some costs on how this can be resolved, and I think in keeping with policy governance, we should allow him to present those to us. And then we should review them based on the overall concept and not nickel and dime it to death. We should look at his proposed cost and his ideas on how he wants to address it. If we don't like the way it's going to be addressed, then he can, based on our request, could go back and change them. But we first need to see what he's suggesting and what the cost associated with that is, and I have no doubt that he's got all that at his fingertips. We just haven't asked for it yet.
That's what I'm looking for. So we want to direct him? Ernie, go ahead.
I think the other thing is right now, with our budget the way it is, it's gonna be very difficult for him
Pretty
to
tight.
move forward on really anything. And that he can provide us with all this information and that as we go forward with our budget, so we have something to work on. But when we hit to the budget, all depends on what he comes up with our revenue stream for the next year as to what direction we can go and how far we can go in that direction. Regardless of what we wanna do, it comes right down to the bottom line. How many dollars do we have available to do something?
Well, and that's what I'm wondering, if there's something we can or need to do now, or wait till the budget. So if we give him at least the direction to start the process, I think that's what he'd be looking for.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody's looked, but we're actually at the budget, aren't we?
pretty close.
Yeah.
No,
June 30th, June 30th month end will be by the end of July. We'll have those figures, and that's typically what starts the budget
I
process.
don't think we're premature on seeing some of those preliminary figures and preliminary ideas on how to approach a problem. So at least we don't have to go over it all fresh at budget time. We can have some ideas on what things are gonna cost. And all those ideas should come from the manager.
Randy?
Yeah, staff-wise, we have been talking about some of these options internally about what could work and not work, because really some of the areas that we've got would not be viable for an outside source to come in and clean because of confidential information and materials that, in the business office. But there are some other areas, the rental area, these offices, things such as that could easily be contracted out. One of the things that not only us, but almost all local governments are struggling with is the demise of any of the supportive programs that used to be in place, like the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, and the Sheriff's Department having their work crews available and things such as that. All those have gone away. They're not available any longer, and we used to rely on a lot of those to offset some of the costs and have services provided. Civilian, the juvenile conservation corps, things such as that. We have had some preliminary discussions with the Superior Watershed folks who have availability of some crews for outside type activities that have impact on watersheds. And Trowbridge certainly does. Everything in Trowbridge impacts a watershed. So, we've had some of those preliminary discussions, and those are some of the things we're looking at. But I think from a recreation standpoint, what we need to do is we need to get to the point of being able to have an early shift and a later shift, basically, to be able to cover it without expanding too much additional time. Same as Public Works. We've talked about that in the past. One of the ways to address some of the Public Works issues may be to have an early shift and an overlapping second shift to address some of the areas that they need to address when it's not quite so critical in the 8 to 5 time frame, that kind of thing. So we have looked at those options, continue to, and you'll likely be seeing some of those in your 18 proposed budget.
Okay, so if Mike, if the committee needs something, you're gonna have to just deal with Randy to figure out, the importance of it or cleaning, but we'll put this off till budget.
I do believe, was it this? There's a report where I started talking about the budget. I think I had it in there. Yeah, I did. Okay, for the 18 budget process. As long as we've touched on it, basically we're just about to start that process. Department heads have already started looking at their needs for 2018. We typically utilize the June 30th projections for the remainder of the year. Go back three to 5 budget cycles to start putting together the proposals, but we are having some more in-depth discussions about some of the things that Trustee Wiegand raised about, what is it that we really see critically on the horizon that needs to be addressed starting in 18 and 19. The end of your term is coming up. It's hard to believe in 20. So your term is coming up. We do have over the next probably 3 years at least a couple of positions that will probably open as a result of retirements, and so we'll be looking at those things as well, trying to come up with some options for you to look at. So 18 is going to be an interesting budget cycle.
Okay, we're good? All right, next up's the manager's report. Might have covered some of that already with
Some of it, I think mainly, and I'm sure Trustee LaRue probably has some comments as well, but, we did have our 8th annual, hard to believe, 8 years already, our car show and cruise, and it was, again, very successful. We had well over 100 vehicles that showed up, and they kept coming all through the day, right up until the end. In fact, I think a few joined us at the end for the cruise. A tremendous amount of work was put in by the members of the Recreation Committee, and some volunteers from the radio station. Todd Nordike's folks were there most of the day, all the day, in fact.
Events committee,
The events committee, what did I say?
recreation.
Oh, I'm sorry, events committee. Talking so much about recreation today. The community events committee, and it was a very pleasant. The weather cooperated. It was just a real nice event, and we did get a lot of comments and a lot of praise from the standpoint of number one, not charging people an entry fee, and number two, just providing something different than what Escanaba does, or Gladstone does, or Sault Ste. Marie does, or St. Ignace does, or whatever. A little bit different, a little more relaxed, and giving people a chance to bring their cars out in a well-controlled environment with a couple of different types of events that generally don't go on elsewhere. Food trucks worked out very well, well enough that one of them ran out of food. So next year we'll schedule that a little bit better. But a lot of thanks to the folks at Todd Nordike's operation at the radio station and the community events committee. I don't know if Pete wanted to add anything to that.
No, I think you covered it all. It went very well, and, just looking forward to that. Are you gonna bring up on August 5th?
I'll let you do that. You can do that. What Pete's referencing is Saturday, August 5th is our annual community day, Catch the Vision, at Lions Field, and that will be an all-day event. We are looking for teams to play in the softball tournament, and folks that have a team, the co-ed, recreational. We're not looking for professional softball players. It's a mush ball tournament, basically, and over the fence is an out, not a home run. So it's in the park. We're looking for a good mixed teams, and if anybody is interested in participating in that, they can contact Dennis Andrews, who's one of our service workers, is coordinating that tournament. He and Dave Larson. So they can be reached through me if somebody wants to just give us a call here at the office. But we'll have events for the kids. We'll have a couple of inflatables. State Police, I believe, are going to be back again this year doing their ID program for the children. There'll be face painting, games for the kids. There'll be a lot of variety. As always, our fire department will be participating with us and be on site. Should there be a need, or off-site should there be a need, they'll be fully equipped and ready to go. And they did get dispatched last year during the event, so folks had a chance to see them in action. Live music all day long, and goes right until 9:30 at night. We have to close up by 10 o'clock. That's the start of our noise ordinance. So come on out. It's not just township residents. Everybody's invited.
When does it start? What time?
Starts the softball tournament's actually going to start Friday night, and that'll go through Saturday, and depending on how many teams are actually registered, may actually go into Sunday morning. But the event itself kicks off around 9 o'clock and goes until 10 o'clock in the evening with continuing live music.
Dave?
There's been a couple people have approached me about they'd like to get involved in the ball game, but they don't have a team. Are teams made up and then registered, or are they forming teams? Or?
Most of the teams are, but last year we did have some pickup teams. Folks that had played in prior games wanted to play more. So they just got together and got a couple of folks out of the audience and played. So if you don't have a team and you just want to see about playing, again, Dennis Andrews or Dave Larson, you can get in touch with them through me, and they can add you to a roster if somebody's short a player on the team.
Anything for the manager? Any questions?
I got one more.
Sure.
Randy, on US 41 corridor advisory group, they got 2000, was it 19, 18?
Mm-hmm.
On the corridor out here. Is there a plan already designed for that, or I haven't seen it?
Still in process. The design is still in process because it does incorporate the roundabouts, you know, and so those plans have not been as yet formalized. So we will get those to you as soon as we have something a little more formal.
2019.
Right.
Set.
Yep, that's there's a 19 project and a 21 project. 19 is the one that will incorporate the roundabouts at Brickyard and at the Walmart and Target intersection.
And also speed limit is just from M28 to Cabogan Road and also on US 2, I believe.
Or 65?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. Speed limits through the corridor here, the township corridor, have not changed. It's 45 miles an hour from the city of Marquette to about Buffalo Wild Wings. Converts there to 50 miles an hour to the Walmart and Target intersection, and it's 55 west from the Target Walmart intersection. So if you're going anything higher than 45 or 50 through the corridor, you are speeding.
Ernie?
Excuse me, following up on Pete's on the 41 Advisory Council corridor, talking about roundabouts, we had some information and some pictures of what they would look like, but I didn't think there was anything in concrete at this point in time.
No,
about the
those were early on renderings of what they may look like. They are now doing the actual engineering, and we will have final drawings of what they will look like here pretty quickly.
because
They're going to have to go out for bids. It's about a 12-month bid process for them, so they'll be having to go out on bids here pretty soon.
I know at the time I said I was not enthusiastic about the roundabouts either place because of the traffic and everything else coming both ways and that too. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's all going to work when they start putting it in and that. So
We are going to become roundabout central with 7 of them going into the city and 2 out here. We'll have 9 new roundabouts to deal with.
I think the other thing is the MDOT on the right-of-way issues. They had a question that says discussing the possibility of licensing some use of the right-of-way. I don't know what they're talking about that. It's on the last one, on number 4.
Oh, on the right-of-way issues?
Yeah, and it says discuss the possibility of licensing some use of the right-of-way.
Well, I think what they're talking about there's been some discussion about in particular, the car dealers that are putting cars out closer to the pavement on the right-of-way. That is now not legal. And there was some discussion about in some areas allowing them to purchase an easement, if you will, basically to allow that a little bit closer under the control of MDOT.
Okay.
Right now, it's not under any control. They're just putting them out there, and MDOT is facing the issue of either coming up with some kind of a mechanism to allow that to occur in a controlled environment or to start citing them. You know, and the problem that we have is that the corridor has, you know, like always, has developed in such a manner that in some areas the right-of-way goes almost right up to the front door of a business, and that is a struggle that they've been having with some of the businesses that engage in auto sales.
Dan, do you have something?
Just a quick question. There was to go back a couple of meetings ago with the ORV ordinance, I've been kind of watching and listening. I haven't heard anything emerging official. Did I miss it?
No, that was published and it went into effect immediately upon publication. That ordinance is a little bit different. That was published about almost 3 weeks ago now, I believe. Or it was right after that meeting. It requires publication once in the local newspaper of general circulation. That occurred on a weekend, and I believe it was now at least 2 weekends ago that publication came out, and that ordinance, correct me, Roger, if I'm mistaken, but I think it's upon publication it goes into effect the following day.
Or being
Yep.
after that, but
Yep.
I must have just missed it. So
Ah.
I may not have been the only one, so I'd like to let everybody know that it is in effect now.
It is in effect, yes.
You heard anything about it? Any problems with it? No, I haven't either.
I had more complaints about the fireworks.
That and drainage.
That's your ballywick. Yes, John?
Just a quick question for our manager came up with a great idea a while back. Well, it comes up with a number of great ideas, but anyway, a while back you talked about the water sales product. I just wonder what the status was.
The status of that is the larger scale manufacturers have not been able to come up with a mechanism to distribute to 5-gallon cans or 10-gallon containers. So we are looking now at some of the smaller ones, like you see in some of the outlets, basically, that would be able to be tied right into our water system at one of our pump stations. There are several of them that you'll see now in Walmart or in some of the supermarket stores that are a self-fill type operation. Those are out of, it's actually probably coming out of our well field and being sold at retail prices. But, we are exploring right now the option of having that kind of a facility at probably our Northwoods pumping station.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for the manager? Any public comment? Any additional comments from the board? Ernie, go ahead.
I don't know if you all got your email from Lois on the audit, but if you have, take a look at it. I always like to look at the manager's comments from the company and that, and reading that through, everything seemed to look very well in that too. I didn't go into detail. It's just too much to read online, as far as I'm concerned. But
It is. And it has,
the management letter was very well.
and it has been submitted to the state and been received,
Right, it has to be done by the end of June.
been accepted.
Yes, Randy.
Now that July 1st has passed, I believe our meetings will not be on charter any longer, correct?
That's correct.
So that
Yeah, it'll be
public service,
eliminated.
that public service channel's gone. So I would like to see then for the next, for the August billing, we put something on the calendar that the meetings will be available at the YouTube or the township site,
Mhm.
and explain that they're not available at the charter any longer. So,
We can do that.
yeah, because otherwise, like I said, the residents are going to turn it on Thursday night, and there's going to be nothing there any longer. So, but all the meetings are there, and our recent work session with Susan Radwan on policy governance is also there, and I think it was very well done. And if the residents want to know about policy governance, both sessions are there. They can see her comments, our comments. If any of the board would like to review that, it's there also. So I think it was very good.
Right, and all the residents need to do is just go on YouTube, online to YouTube, and just search on Marquette Charter Township, and all of the meetings are cataloged by date, and they'll come right up. Just like watching television. Oh,
I think we got, I'm not sure, but I think ever since we've been in this building, they're
I
here.
think
so
they
it's
started in
like 4 years
13.
worth.
late 13, I think the first one was.
Oh, speaking of that, also, Manager Gerard and our new planner, Isaac, we had a little work session with a vendor from the West Coast about, and I'll go into more detail in the budget session, but we'll have a presentation there, but about putting our agenda on the screen tied to the video. So anytime, like on the agenda, and it's very searchable too, like if you want to search about any meetings with water or sewer, you type in, and that meeting pops right up. Those meetings that involve that pop right up, which we don't have the capability to do that right now. Or any hot button items like recreation or Lions Field, all those it's very searchable. And so I will be presenting that to the board in budget sessions coming up, and it'll be up to you guys to figure out if the cost is worth those features. So just letting you know about that.
Go ahead, Dave.
A couple comments. First is, isn't the, if you go on the Marquette Township website, isn't there a link to,
In the bottom, yeah.
in the
That's what I was
bottom?
gonna say.
YouTube.
To going
That's
out there and
actually
looking someplace
easier.
else for it?
Yeah, if you go to marquettetownship.org, go down to the very bottom, there's a
Click
little
on YouTube.
tiny YouTube. If you click on that, it'll give you the most recent meetings. I've had trouble
Well, once you
getting.
pull it up, you can actually get into more of them,
Mm-hmm.
once it
If you
comes
go to
up.
YouTube, it doesn't always give you, they're not in good order.
And then an observation, I don't know if anybody recognized this tonight, we actually got into a little policy governance, and it didn't hurt that bad. There was no knockdown, drag-out battle, so maybe it's not gonna be such a tough transition after all.
Wouldn't be.
And then a comment on all of the ordinances we got around the fireworks ordinance and the drainage issues we got, and it all goes back to there are ordinances out there that cover that. We just aren't enforcing them. And so before we go to all the trouble of inventing a new one, we ought to go back and see which ones we could enforce, because that would resolve a lot of our issues out there.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
was
it.
part of
How you gonna pay
expanding
for it?
planning.
We're already paying
Bernie.
80 hours a week for the sheriff's department to enforce a few things. Where I see 3 citations in a month written, I mean, that just seems a little silly.
Pete, what did you have?
I started laughing, I forgot what I was going to bring up. No,
Lost it?
hello.
Yep, been there, done that. Go ahead, Dan.
I guess a question with Dave on the sheriff's department, if we've got these issues at the 3rd, the 4th, or the 5th of July, can we not make sure that we have an officer on from 9 o'clock at night until 2 in the morning or something? Or can we pick some specific hours and responsibilities for them to try to enforce?
That'd be a manager question.
You can.
We do, yeah, and we do have coverage till 2 in the morning.
You can.
We've got all these issues and maybe you can get out and write a couple more citations.
Get up to 5, huh?
Well, there are more issues than just noise, with this fireworks and that.
Well, some of the ordinance stuff that, like I started to say, we have beefed up planning, that was part of that, is so that we
Right.
have an officer type, quote unquote, to monitor our own ordinances and make sure that, the grass is being cut and the trucks and the cars are being taken care of and that kind of stuff.
I just wish that the county would step up a little bit if they can. It just,
It's an old song.
I know, but the township residents are getting cheated by paying, we have to pay for it, and we're not getting nothing for,
Actually, according to Jim, they don't pay for it. It comes from Lansing.
Gas tax. Gas taxes.
That's the way of saying that, they're not paying for it.
What did we
and
sign then? What did we sign?
I didn't sign it.
What did you sign?
You could ask the manager, he can relay that whole thing to you. It's got something to do with a 20-year contract
Yep.
or allow the county to collect our money and use it as they see fit.
It all falls under their act. Act 50.
It's an act, all right.
52, 53, what is it? Or 53 Public Act.
The point is, as a township, even a charter township, you're a creature of the state
Mhm.
legislature. And if you got a problem, that's where it starts.
We deserve better, that's all.
Well,
Because we're footing the
Take-
bill.
Well, and that is the argument that you fall back on. This board has fallen back on and said, yeah, we're responsible, so let's see what we can do to get it fixed. By statute and by constitution, there's only so much that you can do. You can only do what's reasonably construed under the words of the Constitution. That's your only authority, unless the voters approve additional funding. And I have this conversation with people all the time. Why are you people doing that? Why are you fixing the roads? Because the residents want it fixed, and they wanted it fixed enough that they voted a millage in. I always hear, why are my taxes so high? And I keep telling them, your tax is 4.9 mils. No, it's not. It's 22 mils. That's because school taxes are on there and all the other things that have been voted in by the residents.
and a library tax.
Yeah, and they've all been, those are all extra voted millages that the residents have put in place. And you had the same thing, you know, one of the developers who came in and made a proposal for the property, that our former property, wanted us to give him breaks on the cost of connecting fees and everything else because his taxes were too high. And he didn't even realize that the taxes were not township taxes. They were county taxes and other extra voted millages by school districts and everything else. Our tax is 4.9 mils. That's what our tax is. That's our general operating tax. 5 mils is our maximum cap. Everything else is extra,
They don't
extra voted.
Ernie?
Following up on the manager too, I get a lot of the questions, we're collecting all this money, you're getting all kinds of money in there, you're treasurer, what are you doing with it all? I says, I get it in one hand, and it goes out on the other hand, and very little bit stops in the middle.
Yeah,
And
all that stops with us is the 4.9 mils general operating and the 2.5 mils, now 2.69 mils for the fire department. That's it. Everything else goes somewhere else.
It's difficult for them to understand that.
Anything else, gang?
I move to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. 8:02.